What's up, YouTube? Zachary Michaels here. I'm an actor, and this is An Actor Reacts. Today we'll be talking about me, because it's my birthday. Let's discuss. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. On September 16th, 1995, in Rochester, New York, actor Zachary Michaels was born 2 months premature, weighing only 2 pounds 3 ounces. Okay, so today is my birthday, and I'm officially in my mid-20s now. Starting to feel a little old. Not really, though. Like, if I woke up tomorrow and somebody told me it was time for me to start high school, like, I wouldn't even second guess it. Time is moving, I guess, but I still feel the same, and I'm still, like, learning and growing and all that good stuff, But anyway, today, since it's my birthday, I thought to celebrate, I'd like go over some of my favorite things. Now, I love music and TV and film, and that's what all this channel's about. So I thought I'd break down some of my favorite things in those categories. So let's just get started. Okay, so my top albums. Now, I love music. I've said this before, but acting is what I love the most in the world, and that's what's going to get me through my life. But music is what gets me through my day to day. I've always got headphones in, and I love listening to music and discovering new stuff and being introduced to new sounds. It's just it excites me so much. So I generally listen to like R&B music the most, but overall I have a pretty like eclectic taste in music. So instead of me choosing like my actual top 3 albums for this, I decided to go with like 3 albums that I thought represented the different like kinds of music that I like. So that being said, my number 3 album is Vertigo. It's the 2018 debut album from an artist named Eden. Now, I'm not even super familiar with Eden myself. I found him on Apple Music. There was one song that came up on my recommended playlist like 2 years ago in 2018, and I really liked that song. And so that led me to go listening to the entire project, and I really enjoyed it. Eden is this kind of like alternative type music. It's like that indie singer songwriter kind of vibe. There's some like rock influence in there too. It's really enjoyable for me, and that's one of the kinds of music that I like. I think overall all my music taste is kind of moody, but this one is like moody alternative singer songwriter guitar, maybe some electronic and rock in there. Like all those kind of influences are what make up this album, and I really love it. My favorite track on that album is called Wings. It's just it's again just that same kind of singer songwriter moody, and it has those moments that get me amped when it kicks in the more rock flavor. Just a really good album that I would recommend if you like alternative indie kind of music, because it's a great album. And I've been meaning to, since I heard that album, to get into more of his music, because this was again 2 years ago, so I'm sure he's put out more stuff by now. So I'd recommend him, and I myself need to go listen to more Eden, because it's just a really good experience. My number 2 album would be Drake, Nothing Was the Same. That's his third album that came out in 2013. Now, I've been a fan of Drake since the Degrassi days, and I've followed his career, and I've heard all his projects, so I can confidently say that Nothing Was the Same is Drake's best album. I know a lot of people like to say Take Care, and I really like Take Care. Take Care is probably in my top 3 at least, but Take Care for me is a little too, like, it's too emotional Drake. It's too moody, which I usually love, but it's like too much of that. And part of what I like in Drake is like the mix of rap and the emotional music. And that's why I think Nothing Was the Same as his best project, because it really has all 3 of those, like all 3 of those. It really has both the emotional music and the like hard rapper Drake in there, and it's mixed so well, and it's his best project. I don't care what anyone says. Nothing Was the Same as his best project. My favorite song would be Own It off that. That's the the emotional Drake. Own it, own it, and that track is just so smooth. And that one's kind of long, and When I know I love a track when it's long and moody and emotional, and I rock with it the entire time. Because some people try to do those long, moody, emotional tracks, and it just doesn't work. But when it does, like own it, I can get into it. And a small honorable mention track that I love is Worst Behavior. That song just gets me amped. Like any shout out to Grassy in there. I love that song. I go off anytime it comes on. And then with those two tracks, it's like the mix of Moody, Own It, and Hard Rapper, Worst Behavior. It's that album is his best for sure. And then my number one top album is Free Black by Black. Black is my favorite artist, and this is his debut project that came out in 2016. And now I found out about Black through a soundtrack, actually. I don't know if any of you guys know the show The Get Down. It was on Netflix for like one season. Justice Smith was in it, Jaden Smith, Yahya Abdul Mateen. A bunch of people were in that show, even though it got canceled. I really liked the show, and so after I watched it, I went and listened to the soundtrack, and Black had a song on there, and that was my favorite song on the soundtrack, and I instantly had to go and look him up. And this was like a couple months before his album came out, so I became kind of obsessed with him. I listened to that song off the soundtrack, and then at that point he had Problems and X Calling Out. So I listened to those three songs on shuffle, and like I was highly anticipating this debut project, and it did not disappoint me at all. I remember like exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing when it came out, and I was listening to it, and it was like super late at night, and I was out working outdoors, so it fit my mood and the vibe. It was just so perfect for me in that moment, and it's my favorite project from him. And it's kind of got that perfect mix of all the things that I like. It's dark, it's moody, it's R&B. He's very melodic with I love his like kind of deep raspy tone, and it's got some rap in there as well. I actually thought he was a rapper. I still kind of consider him a rapper, but I thought he was a rapper the first time I heard him. But he's categorized under R&B, I guess, because he sings and he's melodic. But there are a few select songs that he's actually just straight out rapping on. But I'll keep him under the R&B category because that's what he calls himself, and that's what everybody else calls him. And he's my favorite artist, so gotta respect him. Um, and then my favorite track is actually a bonus track off that album. It came out 6 months, maybe actually even like a year after the initial project came out. But as soon as I heard this one, it shot to the top of my list. And it's called In Between featuring Banks. And I wasn't familiar with Banks at all before this song, but Banks and Black's tones, they go together so well. And the song is just that moody, emotional, like they're going through this tumultuous relationship where it's a hard time. They're in between good and bad in that relationship, and they're trying to figure out where they want to go next. And I really love that song, the beat, everything about it. That entire album is just so good. If you have not heard it, definitely I would recommend it. And if you're trying to look them up, it's Black with a six Lack. A lot of people call him Six Slack, which I did too at first until I learned it was Black. I've actually got the shirt that like is like Six Lack pronounced Black. But great project, my favorite artist, and I'm excited for more Black always. I think that's all I got for my top albums, and then I had two honorable mentions that I just wanted to shout out. Like I said, I love R&B primarily, and both of these albums are R&B. But since I already had Black, I went with a rap and a like alternative. But my two honorable mentions are Confessions by Usher. There's a reason why that album is so highly regarded. There's no skips, and I listened to the expanded edition, which is like 20 plus songs, and there's literally no skips on that album. Too good. And then 11 by Johnny Rain. Johnny Rain is an R&B artist. He's not like super big or anything, but when people ask for like music recommendations, I always recommend this project. He's kind of like alternative R&B, so it's like some of that classic R&B sound with like that weird kind of alternative that maybe like The Weeknd or Janae do. And I just think they're mixed in so well in every song on that project. Again, no skips. And there's nice little skits in between. Really good project. I'd recommend it. I would recommend all these albums to kind of get a taste of what I like and just hear some good music. So that's all I got for my top albums. Now let's get into my top TV shows. Now, I seriously love TV. I know there's a lot of like film snobs who look down on TV and think film is just so superior. But for me, honestly, I prefer TV over film. Like, for me, I always care about the characters first and foremost and seeing them grow and see their journey. And in TV, you get a chance to really see characters develop just because there's so much more time. Like a season, even if it's like 6 episodes, that's 6 hours that you get to see a character grow. In a movie, you have like 2 hours tops to have the character grow. And if there's a big plot like an action film or something, there's usually not enough time to really develop a character because there's so much else going on. So for me, I always prefer TV over film, and then especially right now because we're in like the golden age of TV. Now we're gonna get into my top three, but first I want to mention my honorable mention, The Office. Now I love that show. It's just that kind of show that you can watch anytime, put on and kind of leave it on in the background, glance on every once in a while, and just have a good laugh. It's like a nice, simple show. And I remember like judging people who watched that when I was in high school because I was like, that looks so boring. But then, like a few years later, once it went on streaming, I watched it and loved all 9 seasons, even after Steve Carell left. The last season was a little iffy, but I still like the 8th season when Steve Carell wasn't there. But The Office, great show. Now let's get into my actual top three. Coming in at number three, now this isn't actually like a show, it's more so a genre. I love coming of age stories and coming of age TV shows, or some might call them teen dramas. I just, I like to see people, again, I guess it's kind of in the character development thing. I like to see characters like learning about themselves and discovering who they are and like fighting against the things in the world that's holding them back, whether it's their age or whatever it may be. I just love to see those journeys on screen, especially in TV shows. Some of my favorites from when I was a kid, I mentioned being a fan of Drake. So Degrassi, I was a big fan of that. I was probably too young to be watching Degrassi when like Drake was on it, but I was still watching it and I loved it. I loved The Wonder Years. I started watching that in like high school. That was like way before my time, but I love that show. Like Freaks and Geeks. More recently, I love Pen 15. A new season of that is coming out Friday, so I'm excited for that. That's a nice little birthday present for me. Sex Education, Atypical, Trinkets, Looking for Alaska. I included Stranger Things on this list, even though that show's more about like the supernatural type stuff. But my favorite part about that show is just following the kids and seeing them grow and seeing them develop, both as the characters and as actors. And honestly, I could watch a season of that show without any of the supernatural stuff and them just like being kids and growing up and learning. But then there's also Euphoria. Now, I grew to like that show. I did. And then there's the show that I just started reviewing on my channel, We Are Who We Are. I've only seen the first episode of that so far, but I'm really loving it so far. It's like right up my alley. And then there's probably more shows, but those are all the ones that came to my mind while I was writing up this list. And then so my number two show is When They See Us. Now, you know, I got my shirt When They See Us. I got it on my wall. I loved that miniseries. It was 2019 miniseries on Netflix by Ava DuVernay, starring Asante Black, Khalil Harris, Ethan Aries, Marquise Rodriguez, and Jarrell Jerome. So it's basically the story of the exonerated five, them being accused of, convicted, and jailed for a crime that they did not commit because they were coerced by the police and, the other side to make these false confessions. And then they were just kind of railroaded and put in a jail, but they were eventually exonerated, thank God. And now they're here telling their story. And When They See Us was for sure my favorite of 2019. It it had such a huge impact on me. it was very hard to watch, but I had to because it it was needed, you know? Like these stories need to be told because this happens all the time and they don't always get exonerated. Their names don't always get cleared, you know? So we have to bring awareness to these types of situations. Ava, I thought she did an amazing job directing and just bringing that story to life. Not to mention the performances in that miniseries. Like all of the cast was amazing, but especially Jarrell Jerome. You know, he won the Emmy for it. It it was just so inspiring. Like that kind of stuff. Seeing that makes me just even more invested in developing my career. So I'm able to tell stories like that and make an impact like that miniseries did. Hands, like applause to all of the cast, the crew, anybody who had something to do with that series. And then I just think it's so important to tell that story, and I just want to give a special, you know, thank you to all those men. Yusuf, Kevin, Antron, Corey, and Raymond. Like, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm glad you made it out and you're on the other end, and I hope that they can heal from that because you know they were in jail for years, and I can only imagine the trauma that that has, and you know they've spoken about the trauma that they're still dealing with. So I hope that they can heal and just grow. You know, it's such an unfortunate situation, but I'm glad that they're in the clear now. I guess even though they've still, I'm sure, got years of trauma to get through. But so now let's get into my number one TV show. This would have to be Breaking Bad. Now, I felt kind of cliche making Breaking Bad my number one show because, you know, everybody says that and that it's, you know, one of the best things to ever happen on TV. But it's true. I love that show. It's like one of the few shows that I can and have watch again and again and again. I've watched Breaking Bad like from beginning to end at least 5 times. This is another one that I didn't watch when it was on the air, and I watched it a couple years later on streaming, but I've repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. I forgot to talk about the info because I'm just so excited to talk about it. But it was on the air from 2008 to 2013 on AMC, created by Vince Gilligan, starring Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. It's about Walter White. He learns that he has cancer, so he starts making meth to like have money for his family once he dies. And this show is just, it's kind of all the things that I love. It's a TV show, so we get to spend time with the characters. And the show itself, while it does have this kind of outrageous plot, it is so character focused. And it's like a slow burn, which I love. And you really just get to, things develop, and it just all feels so authentic. Um, in this show is just such a masterclass in acting. Both Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, and the entire cast, but those two specifically, kill their performances. Oh, and Giancarlo, can't forget him as Gus Fring. That man is so good. Really, anything that he's in, you know, if he's in it, it's gonna be good. But there's just so much great acting, and then Jesse Pinkman is arguably my favorite TV character of all time. Just hilarious, but also so emotional, and the depth that Aaron Paul is able to bring into that character, just too good, man. And then I even love Better Call Saul, the spinoff, probably one of the best spinoffs I've ever seen. And that's coming. That's been on since 2015, and the last season of that is gonna be next year in 2021. Hopefully, you know, COVID doesn't mess up anything. But I love that show. It's very similar to Breaking Bad in that it's a slow burn and things really get to develop. But Bob Odenkirk as Saul is just so interesting to watch, and that's just such a great character. So again, one of the best spinoffs of one of the best shows that I've ever seen. Breaking Bad, I could really talk about it forever. Actually, I feel like I'm probably gonna. Maybe I'll do another rewatch in the future and do like a recap review of the entire series. Maybe I'll try to bring in some friends for that because me and my friends, we love that show. But anyway, those are my favorite TV shows and my honorable mention. I love TV, man. And again, we're in the golden age, and there's so much out there to watch, and so much good stuff out there to watch. That's all I got on TV shows, though. So let's get into my top movies. So while I did say that I generally prefer TV over film, which I do, there are some films that just really get me, and those are the ones that are usually a little slower, the slow burns, and the movies that have a lot of character development, and the plot is kind of not this big outrageous thing, and more just we're focused on people being people and growing. Like those are the films that I love and that I want to be in. And my two honorable mentions before I get into my top three are Moonlight. Now, Moonlight was a movie that I've had an interesting journey with. When I first watched it, I did not like it. The second time I watched it, I didn't like it. The third, fourth time I watched it, I didn't like it. I've watched it maybe like six times now, and now it's kind of one of my favorites. While I didn't like it at first, there was always something about it that made me keep going back and watching it again. And now it is one of my favorites. Amazing performances from the entire cast. Just really good movie. And then my other honorable mention is Room with Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay. That movie pulled on my heartstrings. Like I'm not a huge crier at movies and stuff, just because I can always kind of disconnect. Like this is a movie, this is a TV show, but that movie had me bawling a couple times. Just such amazing performances. Brie Larson won an Oscar for her performance in that, and I thought Jacob Tremblay should have at least been nominated. That kid was like 5'6" in that movie, and he was on par, if not better than Brie Larson. Like they both had me going in that movie. If you haven't seen Room, I'm not gonna even say what it's about, but I would definitely recommend you go watching it. It's really good. Um, and then both those movies are like A24 movies, which I love that studio. They kind of produce the movies that I was talking about, like the slow burn and the you know character focused journeys and just the true to life essence. Just great movies, and A24 usually produces most of the ones that I love. Now let's get into my top three. My number three. Now I just went over this like I love like true to life and deep movies and slow burns, and my number three is really not any of those. My number three movie is Save the Last Dance. This movie came out in 2001, directed by Thomas Carter, starring Julia Stiles, Sean Patrick Thomas, and Kerry Washington. It's about Sarah. She's a ballet dancer, and her mom dies in this car crash, so she has to go live with her dad in the inner city. And then she has to go to this new school. She's like the lone white girl at the school that's predominantly black. And, she's a ballet dancer, but she doesn't know how to hip hop dance. And then this dude, Derek, takes her under his wing, and they start dating, and he's teaching her how to dance and stuff. And the movie is like super cliche, and like you could say a bunch of things about this movie, but I love it nonetheless. It's a big nostalgia thing for me. I used to watch this movie a lot growing up with my sister. Like we to this day quote stuff from this movie, and it's just so fun to watch. Not to mention the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. Like they have all the hits from like late '90s, early 2000s, and like I love the big scene where Sarah does her like debut at the club, and they got the "You could do it, put your back into it" like playing as her and Derek are getting down, and then everybody's crowding around them. Like I love that scene. Just so good. All the music and the dancing in the film, and then I love like the little love story. It's got my coming of age thing where her and Derek are discovering their love and that they come from two different worlds, and just I just love that movie. It's so good, even though it's not it's not the indie true to life thing that I mentioned. It's got a special place in my heart, and I'm always gonna love that movie, and I can always watch it. And I know that like nowadays people make fun of like her final Juilliard audition, that scene, how she never would have gotten into Juilliard with that dance that she did. But I don't care. I still think that she killed it. Julia Stiles is a good dancer, and I just love that movie. But anyway, let's get into my top two. At number two, now we're back to my, indie true to life type thing, is Manchester by the Sea, 2016 film directed by Kenneth Lonergan, starring Casey Affleck, Michelle Williams, Kyle Chandler, and Lucas Hedges. Now, this is just a really simple story. It's about Casey Affleck's character. his older brother dies, and Casey Affleck's character has been named as the guardian of his nephew. So he has to go back home and kind of take care of his nephew and kind of plan his brother's funeral. And he's like working through his own trauma at the same time, as is his nephew. So it's them kind of trying to build their relationship while they work through their individual traumas. And this movie is just so good. I've watched this a couple times, and it's so it's such small acting. Like there's not really too there's a couple like big emotional moments in the film, but those are like few and far between. It's very like kind of mundane, just a simple movie. These people living their lives, and just it's just so real though, and the performances are so subtle and real. Casey Affleck won the Oscar for this his performance in this movie, and it was well deserved. He was great, as was Lucas Hedges, as was Michelle Williams. She's not in the movie a whole lot, but she's one of those ones who has like a big emotional moment, and she killed it, as Michelle Williams, the white one, does all the time. Uh, Really, just great movie. I it is just simple, but it packs a really big punch of life and realness, and great. I would totally recommend that if you haven't seen it, and even if you have, go watch it again. And then my top movie, my number one favorite movie is Waves. Now, this is a 2019 movie directed and written by Trey Edward Schultz, starring Kelvin Harrison Jr., Lucas Hedges, again, Taylor Russell, Alexa Demi, Renee Goldsberry, and Sterling K. Brown. Now, this is a hard one to, like, give a synopsis of without, like, spoiling the movie, so I'm, like, gonna read the official synopsis. Uh, the epic emotional journey of a suburban African American family as they navigate love, forgiveness, and coming together in the wake of a tragic loss. And when I tell you that this movie is just so good, it has so many great factors. Like, if we start with the performances, like, the entire cast is amazing. I mean, you have Sterling K. Brown, like, powerhouse on This Is Us, Renee Goldsberry, Lucas Hedges, who was also in Manchester by the Sea, um, just Emily, what's her name? No, the character's name is Emily, but she's played by Taylor Russell. She's one who gives a really small and subtle performance, but so impactful. Alexa Demi, who's in Euphoria, I think she really gets to shine in this movie and show more of her acting chops outside of Euphoria, because that character in Euphoria is kind of one-dimensional, but you see more of her acting ability in this movie. And then Kelvin Harrison Jr., man, I saw him earlier this year in Loose. I saw that like beginning of February, and I thought he did amazing in that movie. And then I saw Waves like a month later, and I was just blown away. One, both of the characters are so different from one another, and he's able to do them both so expertly. But then his performance in Waves was just so, it's just so good. Like, I love his performance in this movie. He has quickly become one of my favorite actors after seeing him in both of those movies. Like, an amazing talent, and he's actually going to be in Euphoria the second season, so I'm excited to see him in that, and hopefully his star gets blown up because he's so talented, but I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves. um, and then a huge shout out to Trey Edward Schultz. He again, he wrote and directed this, and it's just so honest and raw, and it's like it's semi autobiographical of his life, and you feel the passion and the rawness that he put into this film. Just hats off to him, an amazing writer and director. I would love to work with Trey one day. And then this project just looks so good. Like, visually, the cinematography is great. The colors that are used in the film, just really beautiful film. You know, the story and the performances, and then just to look at. And then my one of my favorite parts is the music, not just the score. The score is great. It really brings you in. It gives you that indie feel, and you ride the emotions of the film with the score, but also like the music that they use. Like, they have Kanye West songs in there, and ASAP Rocky and Tyler the Creator, and her. Like they have a lot of current music, like stuff that the character Tyler would be listening to in his life right now. And it worked so well. Like apart from the story, every time a song came on that I knew and liked, I was like, "Hey, this is my song! Hey, they're playing this!" And it worked so well for the scenes. And then I discovered some new music that I hadn't heard before that I immediately added to my phone. Like just really good. And that music was a part of Trey's vision. Like I read the script to this movie as well. That's how much I love it. And he has like each song that he wants to play over a specific scene in that original script. So his this movie is really his brainchild, and you can tell the way that he sculpted it all, and I think it really came together so nicely. And I'm honestly a little bitter that this movie didn't get more recognition, especially at the Oscars. It deserved at least some nominations. It is really a work of art. And this film is kind of the epitome of everything that I want to do in my career. It's got the coming of age element. It's got the just amazing performances. It's just real and raw and true to life, beautiful to look at, and just it's a real honest piece of filmmaking that I was able to connect to. Like I don't connect with everything in the film, but there's some parts of the story and the characters' journeys that I'm like, I get that. Like that was me. Like I really feel it. I really just love Waves. I'd recommend everyone go see Waves. Really watch everything on my list to kind of get a good feeling of what I like, and to just hear some good music and watch some good TV shows and some amazing movies. Just really good stuff. That's all I got though. Those are my favorite TV, movie, and albums. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen any of these movies, or let me know some of your favorites. If you like some of mine, if you don't like some of mine, let me know below in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for stopping by. See y'all next time.